1. China's response to Lindsey Graham's Russia tariff threat. 2. Senators propose sledgehammer sanctions against Russia. What it means for Ukraine. 3. Trump's shift on Russia. What it means for Ukraine and U.S. policy. 1. China's response to Lindsey Graham's Russia tariff threat. China has reacted strongly to what it terms illegal unilateral sanctions following remarks made by Senator Lindsey Graham. He indicated that Beijing could be adversely affected by his proposed legislation, which aims to impose secondary tariffs of up to 500% on nations that conduct trade with Russia. Graham, a Republican senator from South Carolina, claimed that this bill has garnered bipartisan support in Congress. This announcement coincides with President Donald Trump's threats to introduce additional secondary tariffs aimed at compelling Russian President Vladimir Putin to seek peace in Ukraine. While Trump suggested a drastic 100% secondary tariff if negotiations do not lead to a cessation of hostilities within 50 days, Graham's proposal, co-sponsored by Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, would provide the president with the authority to enforce even steeper tariffs if deemed necessary. The current invasion of Ukraine has significantly impacted Russia's economy, with extensive Chinese oil purchases serving as crucial financial support amid ongoing sanctions. In response to the escalating tensions, Lin Jian, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, asserted during a press briefing on July 15 that China's stance on resolving the Ukraine conflict remains unchanged. A solution can only be reached through dialogue and mutual negotiations. China strongly opposes any form of illegal unilateral sanctions and the so-called long-arm jurisdiction, Lin stated, as reported by the state-operated Global Times. He continued by emphasizing, there are no victors in a trade war, and coercive measures will not lead to solutions. We hope all parties will work towards creating a favorable environment and improve the circumstances conducive to political resolutions of the Ukraine crisis, taking actions that support peace talks. During an appearance on CBS's Face the Nation on July 13, Graham mentioned that he and Blumenthal have gathered 85 co-sponsors for their bill within the 100-member Senate. He declared that this legislation would equip President Trump with his sledgehammer for targeting not just Putin's economy but also those countries that contribute to the Russian war effort. Countries like China, India, and Brazil are purchasing oil and various goods from Russia, and those funds are being utilized by Putin to sustain the war, Graham explained. The proposed sanctions package would allow Trump maximum flexibility on implementing the secondary tariff, setting it anywhere from 0 to 500% for nations that support Russia economically through commerce. This is genuinely a sledgehammer that President Trump can wield to conclude this war, Graham asserted. In addition to pushing for new sanctions, Trump has pledged to send further Patriot air defense missiles to Ukraine, indicating that European nations will finance a series of advanced American weapons to bolster Ukraine's defense capabilities, thereby increasing pressure on Putin to negotiate peace. As Russia intensifies its aerial bombardments of Ukrainian cities using drones and missiles while amassing troops at the border, the Kremlin's escalating military operations have frustrated Trump, who is actively pursuing a peace agreement. He has publicly critiqued Putin, stating, "My discussions with Putin are always cordial, and yet missiles are launched at night." Adding to the tension, Dmitry Medvedev, a key figure in the Kremlin, dismissed Trump's recent strategies regarding Ukraine. Medvedev, who holds the position of deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, characterized Trump's ultimatum as theatrical, remarking on social media, "The world took notice, anticipating repercussions." Meanwhile, aggressive Europe was left disappointed. Russia remains unfazed. This sequence of events lays bare the complexity and the high stakes involved in international relations surrounding the Ukraine crisis. As tensions escalate, what do you think the next steps should be for these countries involved? Could a diplomatic solution truly emerge, or are we witnessing the build-up to more serious conflict? Share your thoughts, agree or disagree, in the comments. 2. Senators propose sledgehammer sanctions against Russia. What it means for Ukraine. Senators promote Russia sanctions bill as a powerful tool for Trump to conclude the war in Ukraine. In a bold call to action, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal are advocating for swift measures from the United States as Russia intensifies its military aggression in Ukraine. They are pushing for the rapid passage of a bipartisan sanctions bill they have introduced, which they believe could serve as their sledgehammer that President Donald Trump needs to bring an end to the ongoing conflict. This proposed legislation would empower the president to impose a staggering 500% tariff on imports from nations that buy Russian uranium, gas, and oil. The bill is gaining traction in the Senate, especially as Trump has indicated a willingness to escalate U.S. involvement against Russia. Graham stated on CBS Face the Nation that Blumenthal and I have garnered 85 co-sponsors in the Senate for these congressional sanctions, providing President Trump with a powerful tool to target Putin's economy and those nations that support his war efforts. Here, Graham is referring to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Later that day, Trump responded to inquiries about potential sanctions against Russia, saying, "We will see tomorrow," as he prepared for a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He also committed to sending a very sophisticated military equipment to Ukraine. Expressing his disappointment in Putin, Trump remarked, "I thought he was someone who meant what he said. He speaks so eloquently, yet he bombs people at night. We find that unacceptable." Graham and Blumenthal have just returned from a conference in Rome focused on Ukraine's recovery, where they met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other European leaders. Blumenthal noted that European allies conveyed to them that any U.S. sanctions must be tough and rigorous to effectively alter Russia's behavior. Recently, Russia executed its most extensive drone attack on Ukraine since the onset of its full-scale invasion, deploying 728 drones and 13 missiles, resulting in at least one fatality, according to Ukrainian officials. Senate Majority Leader John Thune mentioned last week that he could bring the sanctions bill to a vote by the end of the month, contingent upon Trump's approval. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed his intention to present a bill aimed at tightening sanctions on Russia in the House if it successfully passes in the Senate, indicating a strong desire for stringent measures within his chamber. Despite the growing support, Trump has yet to publicly endorse the bill, stating last week that he was considering it and that its progression would depend on his discretion. However, Graham has claimed that Trump has given him the green light. In recent developments, Trump has announced a deal to supply U.S. weapons to Ukraine through NATO, including an additional Patriot air defense system. His rhetoric against Putin has intensified, marking a significant shift from his previously more conciliatory stance as his frustration with the Russian leader mounts. During a press briefing, Trump stated that the U.S. would be sending NATO various pieces of very sophisticated military equipment to Ukraine, adding, "They will reimburse us 100% for these supplies." He elaborated, "As we provide this equipment, they will pay us back." Doesn't that sound fair? This is how it should have been from the start. While Trump has not finalized the amount of military aid to be sent to Ukraine, he emphasized the necessity of providing support, stating that the Ukrainian people require protection. "This will be a business transaction for us, and we will send them Patriots, which they urgently need, as Putin has caught many off guard," he remarked. On Thursday, Trump indicated that he would make a significant announcement regarding Russia on Monday. Graham and Blumenthal, who are scheduled to meet with Rutte during a dinner with lawmakers on Monday, anticipate that Trump will soon permit NATO allies to utilize seized Russian assets to assist Ukraine. Stay tuned for tomorrow's announcement. The concept of America supplying weapons to aid Ukraine is very much on the table, Graham stated on Face the Nation. Blumenthal added, "We aim to utilize the seized assets in a coordinated manner. A multifaceted strategy is essential to compel Putin to negotiate, as he is a bully." He pointed out that European nations are already preparing to mobilize their Russian assets, and asserted that it's time for the U.S. to also grant access to its $5 billion in seized assets. Graham remarked that Putin miscalculated our resolve and assumed we would grow weary, but he made a grave error, emphasizing that a NATO is now larger, stronger, and more committed than ever to ensure he does not seize Ukraine by force. Congress is on the brink of enacting the most significant sanctions package in our nation's history, the South Carolina Republican declared. This will equip President Trump with tools he currently lacks, a true sledgehammer. This article has been updated to include the latest developments. 3. Trump's shift on Russia, what it means for Ukraine and U.S. policy. The recent pivot in President Trump's approach regarding Russia's ongoing aggression toward Ukraine is nothing short of noteworthy, according to Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, who insists that this shift must be accompanied by definitive action. Upon his return to the federal executive office, Trump notably fostered closer ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, even going so far as to assign blame to Ukraine for the conflict that has markedly intensified since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. This week, however, it seems that Trump's frustrations with Putin's refusal to broker a ceasefire have reached a tipping point. In a significant announcement, the president set forth a 50-day ultimatum for Moscow to reach an accord, warning of harsh economic repercussions should they fail to comply. Furthermore, Trump has presented a strategy that entails U.S. manufacturers selling arms to NATO allies, which would subsequently be supplied to Ukraine. Notably, Trump previously declared that the United States would resume its own arms shipments to Ukraine after a short hiatus. In an engaging segment with NPR's Morning Edition, Blumenthal elaborated on opportunities for additional pressure on Russia, highlighting the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, a legislation he is co-sponsoring along with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. This bill would empower Trump to impose tariffs as steep as 500% on goods from countries engaging in trade with Russia, and it would also extend this tariff rate to Russian imports entering the U.S. According to Blumenthal, Trump's change in attitude may be fueled by a personal sense of betrayal, especially as he witnesses the ongoing humanitarian crisis marked by civilian casualties, attacks on hospitals, and the abduction of children. This distressing reality seems to have prompted the president to consider stronger economic sanctions against Russia. Blumenthal stated, "Our proposed legislation can serve as a powerful deterrent, more encompassing and specifically targeted. This is why we strongly advocate for the continuation of our sanctions against Russia. While military assistance is crucial, it is vital that it is backed by stringent economic measures." In his dialogue with NPR's Stephen Skeep, Blumenthal emphasized the necessity for substantial military support for Ukraine, specifically mentioning systems like Patriot missiles and advanced air defense technologies, which he noted are essential for Ukraine's defense against further assaults. He expressed concern over the ongoing brutal attacks that result in tragic losses, especially for women and children. Interestingly, while discussing Trump's recent threats, some Russian officials interpreted his stance not as a legitimate threat, but rather as an indication that they might have some time, about 50 days, to prepare for future repercussions. When Skeep inquired whether this meant Trump's threats were credible, Blumenthal remained hopeful, asserting that bipartisan support within the legislature will emphasize the U.S. commitment to confronting Putin's regime. He explained that the joint backing of the bill by 85 senators is integral, serving as a powerful message of unity and strength. Moreover, Blumenthal provided insight into the broader implications of such sanctions, focusing on potential secondary sanctions that could impact countries like India, China, and Brazil. He argued that these measures aim to undermine the financial resources supporting Putin's military ambitions, rather than just rescuing American jobs. However, a potential roadblock looms, as Senate Minority Leader John Thune recently stated that he does not intend to bring Blumenthal's legislation to the floor for a vote at this time, citing Trump's ongoing quest for diplomatic relations with Russia. This suggests that while Trump is attempting to foster peace, significant factions within the Republican Party continue to stand behind him. Blumenthal reaffirmed his commitment to advancing the bill and highlighted his partnership with Senator Graham, expressing hope that Senator Thune might be convinced to reconsider bringing the bill to a vote soon. What do you think about Trump's dramatic change in stance toward Russia? Is this a genuine shift toward a firmer anti-Putin policy, or just a tactic to maintain political favor? We'd love to hear your thoughts and whether you agree or disagree with this approach in the comments below.